Please tell us your name.
My name is Thinley Paljor.
His Holiness the Dalai Lama asked us to record your experiences so that we can share your memories with many generations of Tibetans, the Chinese, and the rest of the world. Your memories will help us to document the true history, culture, and beliefs of the Tibetan people. Do you give your permission for the Tibet Oral History Project to use this interview?
Yes, I certainly will, yes.
Thank you very much for offering to share your story with us.
Thank you.
During this interview, if you wish to take a break or stop at any time, please let me know.
All right.
If you do not wish to answer a question or talk about something, let me know.
All right.
So, we are very honored to record your story and appreciate your participation in this project. Thinley, please tell me where you were born in Tibet and what year.
Well, I was born in the western part of Tibet, which is known as Uichang. Uichang. It's called a place called Shikache, which is the second biggest town next to Lhasa.
And what year were you born?
I was born in 1943.
1940.
So it says, in a way, I'm 71 years old. Right now.
How many people were in your family, Thinley?
I have about eight in my family, yes.
18?
Eight in the family, of which two have died when I was small, young, and I still have about four living sisters, still in Tibet.
What part of Tibet are they in?
They moved to Lhasa now.
Oh,
Yes.
they're in Lhasa.
Yes.
I see. And what did your parents do for a livelihood?
Oh, my parents used to be we are a middle class family. My father used to do business. My father and elder brother used to do business in small trader. They are traders, merchants. Buying wool, the wool.
Yes.
And buy wool from this Changdang area where the nomads live. Then we collect those wools and sell it, go to India to sell those wools to Kalimpong area. That's how my elder brother used to travel every year, twice a year, to come to India for this business, to sell his merchandise, then buy some commodities from India, go back to Shikasi again.
What were the kind of items that your family wanted brought back from India? What did they bring?
From India, we buy a lot of these, different, garments, like clothings, different clothings, yes. Like especially clothing for Tibetan women men are fond of clothing made from wool, material, woolen materials. They are very, very hard to get and very expensive. And in those days in India, you can purchase British-made woolen materials. So they are very expensive. We call those clothings gyate. Gyate means it's one of the superior materials, woolen materials.
So the wool actually came from Great
Tibet.
Britain. It came from Tibet, was taken to India.
India.
And then what did they do with it in India? Did they
We sell it to the Indian merchants.
I see.
They in turn ship it to England.
And
This is how they.
And did you ever go on any of these trading missions with your relatives?
Well, with my brother, one time during one of my holidays, during my school break, I went with my brother to Calcutta to get contact with the merchants who buys these wools. So I went there as a kind of interpreter on behalf of my brother.
Why were you able to interpret for him?
I was in school. I was left in boarding school since 9 years old. So that was in 1952.
Where was the boarding school?
That's in Kalimpong. It's a place called Kalimpong in Darjeeling district.
How long of a journey would it be from Shigatse to Kalimpong, and how did you go?
Those days there were no motorable roads. We used to come by horse. So it took us around 7 to 10 days to reach up to Sikkim. We came via Sikkim through the very high pass called Natula. Natula. From there, as soon as you reach the Natula, you come down and you reach Sikkim in a day's time. Yeah.
So your family decided to send you to school at 7?
When I was about 9 years,
No,
8, 9 years,
nine.
yes.
At
Yes.
9. And was that typical for the people in your area in Shigatse that you would be sent to school?
No, not very typical. But my elder brother, who used to be in charge of looks after the family, took the responsibility of the family, and he has been traveling a lot to India, and so he has a very wide, more foresight. So what's good for the kids, for the children? So he thought that at one trip, he said, let's go, I'll take you to India so that you can get some education. And so that in that way it'll help him too, he said, so that I will be able to speak in the language in India or in English language, whichever is necessary, that help him to translate. So that was the main purpose, I think, at the time.
Before you went to school, can you tell us a little bit about what your life was like from up to the time 9 years old when you left, when you were 4, 5, 6, 7? Can you have any memories of what your family life was like?
Yes, I was when I was a young kid, around 5, 6 years old. My parents used to send me to a school, to a nearby school. Those days in Shikatsi area, I clearly remember we have 3 private schools. There's no government or public schools as such at that time. So the 3 schools, my parents asked me to choose out of the 3 schools which that I wanted to go. I choose one school called Guerrillas. It's a very well-run school. And one is called Kakhan, one is called Jautang. These are the 3 private schools. So all you have to do, those days there's no fees system also as such. All you do is when the parents ask for admission, they give some gift, to the teacher. That's all. Then that's the end of it. There's no monthly fee or anything as such.
Was that school run by a private enterprise or the government or what?
It's a family-run school. Family member school. And the students, the guardians of the students used normally try to, present a lot of gifts and, because since there's no fee system in the school, so in order to get a good education, the parents would try to please the school, the family of the school to...
And when you attended that school, did you come home every night?
Yes.
What was your family life like at home? What happened at home?
Well, I get up early in the morning, just before the sunrise. We go to school, and once you reach the school there, and we do some prayers there in those days. Even when we were small, we have to do some prayers, half an hour prayer. After prayer, then we each bring our own tiffin, small tiffin, breakfast tiffins, and we, after doing our prayers, we have to eat our breakfast. After breakfast, then there will be normal class, which lasts till about 12 p.m. And there's a break in between. Then in the afternoon, the school ends at around 3 o'clock. Then we come back home and then play till late at night.
And you were how old when you went to that school?
The school is 6 years. I was
6 years old. Did you like school?
Yes, used to like school. The school used to teach us emphasis on how you how to improve your writing. Tibetan writings are done on a slate board, you know. We are taught on slate board, not on paper like here. Slate board, and we have to use for pen. We have to use bamboo, small bamboo sticks, and you cut it, sharpen it, make it into shape it into like a pen nib, you know, the nib of a pen. Then with that, for ink, we used to use some of this mixture of glue, sugar, and some with this mixed thing, ink set on the sticks stays on the board, card on the slate board. So they teach us how to write first, through this. Yeah.
You said you liked school. Do you have any favorite memories of those early school days before you went off to India?
Into school days, mostly we used to play a lot to those days. Small kids, not much teaching, but mostly we do a lot of prayer in the morning.
What were some of the kinds of prayers you would say at that time?
Those days, like just very simple. Every kid can do Lama Lakya Suche, Sangya Lakya Suche. Hail to the three jewels of the lotus. Yeah, these are the three simple. Every kid learns this.
Can you tell us what the three jewels represent?
Well, I'm not really not that.
But what did it mean to you, the three jewels, in your own words?
Always, when you say Lama Lakya Suchi, means we take refuge, shelter in the arms of the lamas, gurus, Sangya Lakya Suchi. Sangya is the Buddha. We take refuge in the Buddha. Cho Lakya Suchi in the Dharma. We take refuge in the Dharma. Gindu Lakya Suchi in the Sangha. Sangha, the monks. So these are the things, yeah. This is the basic tenets of Buddhism.
Yes.
Yeah.
Were there any other teachings that you remember learning early on that you still keep with you? What that moved you as a young child, or that you found very valuable to hold on to the rest of your life?
That I can't really. Well, what I remember most is that we used to play a lot of games, just like a marble here. We don't have a marble in those days, but marbles made out of knuckles,
Yes.
Yes, with knuckles of different knuckles in sizes. And what we used to do is we used to skin them out, and very, and we used to put on a rough surface. We used to make it gravel so that the top stays very smooth. Then the catch, we used to play these marbles, try to see if who can topple the other one, first. So this was one of my favorite games those days. Yes.
Sounds like a fun game.
Yes, fun game.
And you made your own toys too.
Yes.
Thinley, would you please describe your memories as a youngster, maybe 8, 9, 10? What was the city of Shigatse like in Tibet?
Those days, it was in 1952, I remember. Before that, the Chinese came in 1951 to Lhasa. Then on the end of that very year, 52, a division of Chinese army came to Shigatse. At that time, they moved to Shigatse, but at that time we were kids and we didn't really care much about who they were. And at that time, it seemed to me that they were just very poor, and they were very polite with everybody,
These were the Chinese soldiers?
Chinese soldiers who were asked to come.
What were they wearing?
They were wearing those army uniforms, you know, those yes, with this,
What color?
those what you called, it's khaki colored.
Khaki colored?
Khaki colored, yeah.
I see. And what was the town like? Were there lots of shops and stores?
Our town used to be a very, very busy town. We used to, small town right in the middle of the Shikatsi. We have this big fort, Shikatsi Chizong. Chizong means it's a fort, you know, fortress up there, which is whereby every 3 years, 4 years, a government service, you know, civil servant from Lhasa comes over to Shikatsi to supervise over the administration
I see.
of Shikatsi. So just next to that, right in the middle of the city, we have an open area. There used to be a marketplace called Marketplace.
Uh-huh.
People are very busy selling different wares.
What were some of the things that if we could take you back in time and look at that marketplace, what are some of the things that were there that might not exist right now or might be finished or gone? What are some of the items?
Marketplace, it's not a like we have here these days, but it's just on an open area. There's no, everything's laid on in a haphazard manner. There is no specific spot for any individual as such.
Were there any items that were very interesting to look at in the marketplace?
Well, those days I used to only look for something where kids like to play, you know, anything like small cars, you know, small cars. Sometimes these merchants bring these small things for kids, you know.
I see. And was the town very prosperous? Was there enough food for people, enough work for people?
Oh, there's food. There's no problem. Those days, food. We do have a lot of beggars, but the beggars do their job early in the morning. They go to different families, and each and every, they are never sent off without some of the families giving something. After midday, the beggars are very happy, and they just lie down in the sun. Yo.
What made them beggars?
Well, they don't like to work, like you say, everybody, you know.
But the people of the town felt a kindness to them.
It's very kindness, yes. This is a Buddhist teaching, you know, doctrine, which is to help others.
Can you tell me more about that doctrine? What does that mean?
Well, help is, if you help others, you will benefit in turn.
How do you benefit?
Benefit, you feel very happy in your heart, contentment, satisfaction. That's the most important thing. Yeah.
And why is it good to help other people? Besides, it makes you feel good. How did you regard these beggars in your town?
Those beggars are very friendly beggars, you know. We know they are beggars, but nobody considers them as a beggar. They go, but they sing, they dance, they play music. This is their life.
Yeah, I see. So you supported them.
So the general public. This is not only confined in my town, but in other towns as well, all over this. The beggars are plentiful, but people are still very, very generous, you know, with these people.
In the town of Shigatse, was there a major temple?
Yeah, the biggest temple is the Tashi Lombo,
Can you
where
tell
the
me?
seats of Panchen Lama.
Who is the Panchen Lama?
Panchen Lama is the second highest next to Dalai Lama. Yes.
And was he there at the time?
His monastery is in Tashi Lombo.
Did you ever see him?
Oh, I've seen the 13th, no, it's the 9th Panchen Lama, I think. One time, I think from far away, I've seen him, but in 1935 or 40, he went to China and he died on the way, I believe. This is what the story is.
I see, okay. So so we can hear all of your story. Maybe we should move on to you left school. You left your local school, your private school, and you said that you went to this other school.
Yes, my brother took me
Your
to
brother took you there.
India.
Yes, and what was? Can you tell us a little bit about that school? You were 9 years old.
Yes,
And it was
that was
7 to
in 1952, in early 52. I was about 9 years there. My brother used to travel every year to Kalimpong, and he knew some of the schools in Kalimpong area. And in the beginning, I went to a local school, which is run by, it's called Kalimpong High School, which is a locally run school, which teaches, it doesn't teach you English or anything like that. But so I went there for about 8 months there. It's very close to by my house. We used to stay. And the school, that school taught me also, I learned the language, local language also very fast, playing with the kids, learned the local language very fast. At the same time, their teachers used to teach us. I was put into they call it, those days, they call it Dunga class. Dunga class means it's like equivalent to kindergarten. Dunga class. Dunga means stone. You play with only stones, Small, so Dunga class, this in school, there, high school. But at that time, even though we play with the stones, like instead of pen, we use stones to calculate, That's why they used to teach us the maths, division, multiplication, addition, all these three principles. At that school we used to. Since then I got that, little bit of that technique of learning the maths. Then later on when I was admitted to a boarding school, it's an English boarding school, I was quite comfortable because they said, although I didn't know English, and they said, okay, it's all right. You look very smart. We'll give you a special class for like foreign. They were not only me. There were number of foreign students from Bhutan, some other parts of students here. And they said, okay, we'll give you a special class for you. So I was given a special English class for about a year or so. Then once I got that, at the same time, the special class, they teach you English, also other subjects, of course. But gradually they said, okay, now your English is pretty good. Now next year you can join class 3. They said standard 3. That was quite a jump,
Quite a jump. You were a bright little boy.
Yes, I thought so, yeah.
And they thought so too.
Yes, they thought so. They say, okay. So they put me in class 3.
Oh, wonderful. And how long were you, this is the school in Kalimpong, right?
Kalimpong, I was till 1959.
So 50,
That's
so
where
7 years.
that was the year, yeah, I completed my senior Cambridge, We call it, those days, senior Cambridge.
Okay.
It's called school leaving certificate.
Oh, so that was a very...
That's a high school level,
High school level.
Yeah,
So you were 11 years old.
No, 11, no, by the time I finished, I was 17.
Oh, 17,
18, yeah.
17.
Yes.
You were born in
1943.
43, okay. And this was you graduated in 1952?
No, 52 I went to study, yes. I came to Kalimpong, yeah.
And so were you happy in that school overall? Was it hard? Was it fun? Was it easy? What was it like?
Oh, very, very much. I liked the school because the school, it's a Dr. Graham's school. It's founded by one of very, very, very revered one doctor, Reverend Graham's. They call it. He's a Baptist, Christian, and he has founded this school in 1900. And he had a lot of volunteers coming from all over New Zealand, Australia, from England, Scotland, teachers as a volunteers every 1 or 2 years. Because those days India had just got freedom from British rule. So still British influence is still there, very much. British influence there. So all these teachers used to come very as a volunteer for 1 or 2 years. So as a result, they used to teach us, a very dedicated teacher.
Wow.
Give us a really good training.
Wonderful.
And we used to, I used to live in a hostel. We have a guardian who looks after, we call it uncle and auntie in school. We have one guardian. They are also from foreigners, and they used to give us really good teaching. They help us with our homework at home, in the hostel. We used to live in small cottages, We had about altogether 18, 20, 25 different cottages spread out.
Wonderful. Well, you had a very fine educational opportunity. Were there other Tibetans in that school, or were you the only
Oh
one?
yes, we had, yes. I had three Tibetans with me. One was who had arrived before me. His father was also well-known Khamba. Maybe Sidula knows him, Aluchunze. Aluchunze, he's from Letang area. And his son was also with me in the same school.
I see. Thinley, can you please tell us what happened when you left school, when you finished that wonderful education, and how old were you and where did you go?
Well, I had at that time, that was in 59, when I had just completed my senior Cambridge, just waiting for the result. At that time, there was also school break there in between. So then all of a sudden, in that very same year, we had this Tibetan revolution in Lhasa. And I lost contact with my parents. My brother, who used to come every year, but he couldn't come also all of a sudden. So they're completely disconnected. No contact with my parents. So I was just like lost in the wilderness,
How were you feeling about that?
So I felt also very, but fortunately, the school principal was a very, very generous and compassionate man. And he knew about the background story of what's happened in Tibet, and all the Chinese took over, the many came. He knew that story, and I was in a very depressive mood at that time.
Were you?
And he called me to his office, and he told me, Thinley, you don't worry, nothing will happen. Even if we hope that your parents are safe, but in the meanwhile, don't worry, you concentrate on your studies. Then, if there's, then I told him, but okay, it's very kind of you to do that, tell me that, but now who's going to pay the school fee now? Who's going to pay? He said, don't worry about that, forget about that. I'll take care of you. I will see that you get through. So whatever you want to do, you do. So he was very, very kind. His name is called Mr. Duncan. Duncan. He's English he's from Scotland.
And tell me the name of the school again.
Dr. Graham's Homes.
Dr. Graham's Homes. Okay.
Yes, that's in Kalimpong. One of the best schools in Kalimpong area. English school.
So what you only heard by information coming to you that there was an uprising in Lhasa. You didn't know if your family was okay or not?
No, I knew about that. There was such a big rumor in Kalimpong those days.
Right.
That Kalimpong is a place where a lot of Tibetans are settled there.
Right.
For many years. So they knew the news. There was a trouble in Lhasa, and there was things everything was in broken down, and they knew everything.
I see. So what did you do next then?
Then next 10 hours, he said, okay, you just, it's a holiday time, but you just keep it. If there's any problem, anything you need, you just come to me, but don't worry. So in the meanwhile, I went to the Kalimpong town where my brother used to live. So I lived there. Then one day when I was moving around the town, then one Mr. Thundup's representative contacted me. He was a Lamu sharing, Lamu sharing. He's a right hand man, Mr. Thundup. He contacted me. He told me, what am I doing? I said, oh, this. I told him the situation, story. He said, don't you worry, but now what we can do is, you may continue your study also in the future, but in the meanwhile, we are in a very dire need of interpreters, translators for our. It's a very, very confidential, work we have, which I've been going around trying to find, but I found you one of the most. I feel that we can do something with you. He said. Then I said, what is it that what do I have to do? Then he said, okay, you I'll arrange a meeting with Mr. Thundup in Darjeeling. He lives in Darjeeling, and he will tell you the details. But I am not allowed to reveal what it is. He told me. So I went. So he arranged trip to Darjeeling, and I met him. I met Mr. Thundup at his residence. He asked me, and he said, you look very young, and we know you have your own problems, but here, we, as a Tibetans, I have a big responsibility on my shoulder now. Mr. Thundup told me at the time. What it is, he said, it's now China has taken over our country, occupied our country. Now we need to fight back. We need to fight back the Chinese. The only way to fight back is, I have already recruited, there were many, many volunteers who are willing to go on a training and go back and fight again for Tibet. So what I want, he told me, what I want is if you would be willing to go on a trip, but I will not tell you where it is, but will you go on a trip and act as a translator, interpreter on their behalf? He said, then I said, okay, what do I have to translate? Where do I have to go? I told him all this. Question. He said, that's a very top secret, but it's someone LP. You are in good hands. All those trainings will be taught by a foreigner, special trainings, and all you have to do is you have to interpret on their behalf.
What did you feel when you had such a very mysterious invitation of adventure?
No, I said, this is something why. I also felt a little bit. I thought maybe they are sending me back to Tibet or something like that.
Yeah.
Those days there are rumors that a lot of Tibetans are going to Taiwan, for most of trainings. So at that time, Tibetans were not in very good relations with the nationalist China in Taiwan at that time. So I was also thinking whether they were going to. I said, I told Mr. Thundup, is this going to be? Am I going to go to Tibet? Then seriously I told him. He said, no, Tibet, not. But not you. You, but he didn't say that others are going to go back. He said, not you.
Were you
You go in a
excited?
place, it's a very, you'll be well looked after. You maybe you have to, for 1 or 2 years, you may have to translate, and then you come back and you, again, if you like to go on further studies, you can continue your study. You are young and you can still continue.
Did
So
you
I
want to
thought
do it?
again, I said, okay, let me think about it. And at that time, you see, by the way, I forgot to tell you, but I had my small sister also, younger sister, who came over to India in 1956, the year when Dalai Lama went on a pilgrimage to India at that time. Lord Buddha's 2,500th birth celebration, and so he was invited, and a lot of Tibetans came. My whole family came at that time, 56, and at the end of the pilgrimage, my families went back. That was 56. There was no problem about Chinese. But my brother thought that he was also very, very thoughtful about the future of the kids. So he thought that my younger sister, she should also stay with you here. And there's a small convent school. It's a Jesuit school. She should be studied there. There are some Tibetans from Sikkim are there, and then I think she'll be more comfortable there. So he left her also that time. So she was there, and then in 59, when I was asked by Mr. Tunduk to go, I said, okay, who's going to look after my sister here? Yeah. And he said, okay, we'll take care of her, don't worry. And exactly, that's how I volunteered, and that's how I got in contact. I was more or less recruited by Mr. Tunduk to join the, resistance group, yeah.
Did you have any political feelings at that time about you wanted to help Tibet or fight the Chinese, or were you neutral, or where were you?
No, at this time I was very raw kid in that sense, knew nothing about the politics, nothing about the Tibetan, what you call say, motivation, these things, nothing about nation as nation. But later on, when I studied, when I was in the training with the Tibetan guerrillas, with the warriors from different parts of Tibet coming, when I was translating for them many periods of time, like there was long debriefing meetings. During those days, I've really left a very, very, very deep impact on my life. Listening to the stories of these warriors and listening to their debriefing, and they used to say that those instructors, that CIA instructors used to call them one by one, maybe a group of 2 or 3 at a time. During those training days, the Tibetans were formed into different groups, like different A group, B group, C. There's different names. So each group has a different assignments. There is one group which concentrates completely on transmitting radio messages, learning how to transmit and how to receive. There's one group simply learning political action group. There's one group only simply learning how to guerrilla warfare tactics. Different. So there were different groups, and when I learned these stories from them, and the instructors used to ask them at the end of the training, they used to call them, but now your training is about to end. Now it's time that we have to go back to you have to go back to your home. What you think about it? You still want to go back and fight the Chinese, or what do you think? The instructors used to ask them. So each and every trainees, those warriors, they said, "Oh, if it's for the sake of the Tibetan Dharma, and for the sake of the Tibetan culture, and for the Dharma, we are willing to go, no matter where. We have no particular choice of places of choice. Wherever you think is better, we are willing to go." They all said that, It's because we want to go back and fight once more. See that we see with your support, I'm sure we will achieve our goals. This is the spirit they had, very, very highly motivated.
How did their spirit affect you?
That spirit affected me. As a result, whole my life I've served the Tibetan community. I served the Tibetan government for 33 years till I retired in 1992. Till 1992, I was retired after 35 years of service to the community. So because of that, which made me, otherwise I could have become a very rich man, a businessman. In fact, in Nepal, it's such a place for business opportunities are there. There are many Tibetans, entrepreneurs, worked in different works of carpet factories. I also worked in a carpet factory, but my life I worked for the government. So there was no, what we would call Kangban Yesu, means standing on 2 feet, 1 feet here, 1 feet there, so that this is some clever people. This is, I said, I never put 2 feet, just sit in 1 feet, that puts them. So I served the Tibetan government till I got honorably, from left the job. So that's what motivated me. Yes.
Why don't we go back to the beginning of how this motivation started? So you were telling us, here you were, Mr. Tundup was asking you to do this incredible translation work, a little bit of a mystery. You didn't know where or how you were going to do it. But after you found out your sister was going to be okay, you agreed to go. Can you tell us what happened then? What happened next?
Well, then the next is okay. Mr. Tundup told me that after meeting him, after I volunteered to go, provided he looks after my sister's sibling, then he said he'll get in contact with me. Please be ready, but please don't reveal this to anybody, to a soul, even to your sister. So when I went back to Kalimpong, and my sister was asking me, where have you been? And I said, I just went to see a friend, called me but came back. But then one day I got a message from Mr. Tundup saying that you have to go today, immediately. There were people waiting with the transportation. So if I'm ready, I said, I'm ready. So I had to leave without letting my sister know. And one of our family members, an old elderly lady who used to look after both of us, who looked after my sister, we didn't let any of 2 of them know. I just went there.
Where?
Disappeared.
Can you tell us where?
Oh, I went to Darjeeling, and Darjeeling that very night I went there, and there was a group of Tibetans. We were asked to stay in a safe house in Darjeeling first. Those days Mr. Tundup he has got a lot of this experience in this clandestine activities.
So let us continue with the story. So
Fine.
What happened when you left Darjeeling?
When after leaving Darjeeling, we were with a group of 15, men. 15 men, all are not very old, all in the early 30s. Or they were those days, yeah.
Tibetan men?
Tibetan, yeah. Then about 15 of them, the first stop was that we went on at night time from Darjeeling. Mr. Thandup, he is a dedicated man. He himself drove the big Land Rover. He had a big Land Rover. He himself drove the Land Rover and dropped us at the end of in Siliguri. It's a place called in the plains, very close to Pakistan. Those days it's Pakistan, but now it's called Bangladesh. Those days it's called East Pakistan. So he dropped at a certain place at night, and there was one guy who used to guide us. He's been there before, so he took us at night. It was in the open field, in the open like rice field. It was rice field. The water was up to here. We used to, go through the swamp. Whole night we went there, and what we were asked was that we would, as soon as we reached the Pakistani border, there will be a infrared signal coming from there every once in a while. So when you see that signal, you just follow that direction. That's what we were told. Nothing else, So we just went blind, went night. Dogs are barking, in the villages in the area. So again, we had to hide there for our stay, half an hour. And at one time, during those walking in the field, this deep water. And one day I fell down, and I lost one of my shoes there in the swamp, and I lost one shoe. So by the time I reached East Pakistan, I had one shoe missing. So once we got there, the Pakistani soldiers were there waiting for us, and they escorted us to a safe house. And then they said that the American will come over and see you. So we sat in that safe house for a while. But then later on he told me, oh, the American is not coming here. He'll be there. You'll meet him in another place. So in the meanwhile, you have to come with us. So we had a refreshment and this and that. And then he took us escorted us in a truck, in a military truck, for about 3 hours we drove from that border town. Mm-hmm. Then we reached a place in a railway station. No, out of nowhere, it's a railway station. There were few locals going up and down, but what we were told by the soldiers that okay, you have to act like you're a prisoner. Otherwise, the local will get suspicious. They will report it, to the authorities. Mm-hmm. So what you have to do is and they said they will, with a gun pointed at us, and we had to walk to the railway station, and the train was waiting for us there, and the soldiers were with a gun pointed at us, and we walked us like a prisoner. The locals on the platform in the station were looking at us. They thought they must have, there's another smuggler or some, so
criminal.
Yeah, criminals were there, they caught. So we were put into the train. Once we were in the train compartment, they said, okay, now you can relax. They told us, now you're in good hands. We'll go to Dhaka, our capital. So we went whole night. till next morning. Again, we stopped at another place, and from there, it was a short distance by truck to the airport, Dhaka airport.
In Pakistan?
In Pakistan, yes. Those days is Pakistan. And there at the airport itself, the one huge American plane was parked there on the ground, and two Americans came over, and they looked so huge, big. We have never seen, Americans so huge human beings, with you, yeah. So we were all just staring at him, Everybody was staring at him. They said, okay. Then he introduced himself. He said, oh, no, you are good. We have to stay here. You change your clothes. And they completely changed our clothes, put us this different army fittings, military clothes. They gave us this military clothes. And that's the plane we are going to go there. It was an unmarked US aircraft, huge, big one. Then we didn't know where we were going, but then at night, they took us in the plane, and the next thing we knew is that we were in another island from there. We didn't know at that time where we were. It was a very hot place, very, very hot, humid, very hot there. And it's deserted, nothing there. The place where we parked and where we were staying, it's a completely isolated place. Of course, later we learned that place is called Saipan. It's an island. It's during the Second World War. I think that many Japanese were killed. Some committed suicide from the cliff, up on the cliff. So during those training days, we stayed there for 5 months. 5 of us were trained there. Especially, not 5, or 10 of them were trained especially in this, on the intelligence work, intelligence gathering, tradecraft, tradecraft. We were given a training on this. So that was my first experience as a translator.
Were you given the training, or were you just translating for the Americans and the Tibetans? What were you doing?
No, well, during the training period, I translate as well. So simultaneously, I also participate there. Like, all this, like when we go on a night, sometimes, we go on a nighttime walking, this all things, but we have to, I also do the same thing. Yeah,
Now, who was training you? The Americans?
Well, yes, there was a teacher called Mr. Zik. Zik, he's a very huge, big guy. He used to be later we learned that he was a very good footballer, American footballer. During his college days,
Football
he used to
player.
play. He's a football player, very huge guy. Big one. He's very scary, If she looks at you, we all get, very. But he is a very, very gentle by nature, very nice. But he doesn't speak much, but we all like him. He doesn't speak much, but because his nature is such, he looks very, very serious,
Tell me, at that point in time, what was your understanding of why the Americans were helping you Tibetans? Why were they doing that?
Well, the reason is that basically...
that you knew at that time?
No, not that time. Firstly, I got a little idea from Mr. Thundup. Mr. Thundup told me the reason why the Americans were helping, because he also came to visit us at that time. He said one of the main reasons was that we are these people who have volunteered here, and the teachers, all the instructors are very, very selected, not from among any from the Marines or anything, but very selected officers, trainees.
Why? Why did the Americans want to help the Tibetans?
They said they thought that when we told them, first I didn't know why they wanted to help us, but during the interview period, they said that your story, what you have been through, your enemy is our enemy. It's the same thing. We are also completely against Chinese communism. And since you are fighting against the communists, we are for you. Therefore, our cause is same. This is what they made us understand. Yeah, because of that, yeah. And in fact, they did. They really sincere. We had about all in all around 12 or 13 instructors there. All very, very experienced Marines in active duty. Like, some been they were in Laos, they were in Korea, they were in Vietnam. All these veterans of this during the Cold War.
So there were 10 people that were being trained, and you were in that group and also being trained.
Yes, those.
Can you tell me what some of the training involved?
The trainings those days at Saipan, at the island, that we were not so much of a guerrilla warfare tactics, not that training. Mostly those days we were asked to how to organize clandestine organization, secret, collecting of secret intelligence gathering, technique of different observation, how to observe, how to make an observation, how to elicit information from different people, all these different way of getting intelligence.
Can you give us an example of one technique?
After so many years, I don't remember really.
Okay. So, how long?
No, like one example is like they used to tell us that it's what struck me most was there was one special language they used. It's very important as a secret agent. You have to have a compartmentation. It's called need to know principle. You only ask what you need. You don't ask every question like that. So that principle really stuck to me. It's a need to know principle. It's a very, very valid.
And so, were these other people with you? Did you know any of them from Tibet, or were they all new to you? And where did they come from?
Because I was a small kid when I came from Tibet, but some of them I knew, they knew my family. Two of them I knew, And mostly those trainees, those first, which I went as an interpreter on their behalf, who went to this place called Saipan, and they went back to Darjeeling to set up a clandestine organization. That's sending agents on the border area, gathering informations, and sending radio team, get information from there, and try to analyze these. These are the trade crafts, but they also teach us how to use different type of weapons, that's right. But not a guerrilla warfare tactic, which we learned in Colorado.
That was later.
Yeah, that was later, yeah.
Okay, we'll get to that. So, the school, this training lasts for 5 months, I believe you said?
Yes, over 5 months.
And then what happens to you? Tell us your story. Where do you go next? And what are you feeling as you serve as a translator and a member of this intelligence training team? What are you feeling about doing that?
Well, after learning some of the, like as a young kid, getting together, living with them for the so long period, day in, day out, and you get to know them personally, and some of their, some of their motives, when you learn them, and their patriotism. When I learned that, then I said, I think what I have been choosing to do is it's the right course. This is what I felt, honestly. But because their motivation is such high, that's how I learned to be a very, very good, try to be a good Tibetan. Very sincere Tibetan, in that sense, yes.
So
honest Tibetan.
So they selected you because of your ability to translate. Were these other people selected to be part of the team because they came from different parts of Tibet? Or
yes, all from different, there are so many volunteers. When they heard this news that the CIA was secretly recruiting people from Kham areas who have just come over. So when they heard these rumors in India, many people, volunteered to come to Darjeeling, more than
they needed.
Yeah, more than they needed. Well in excess.
Okay, so they came from Kham. Did they come from Utsang?
Yes, definitely.
Amdo?
From Amdo, from Golok area. We had people from Golo.
Yeah.
Golo ne Yordami. Yes, from Amdo, Golo, and Utsang, and from way up in the Porong area, in the western part of Tibet, from all 5 regions of Tibet.
Those 10 trainees were from all over Tibet.
Yes, we try to select from, those times the Mr. Tuntuk try to select people from all regions. There's no bias or discrimination. Anyone who would volunteer, as long as they are able-bodied, they're young, strong, and eager, you are there.
And then what happened to this young, strong, eager man? What happened?
So I ended up in Okinawa. After the training, they were escorted up to Pakistan.
Yeah.
In the same way I came through. From there, they again went to the same way as I had come, Went to Darjeeling, and they had set up an office, the secret clandestine office there. At those days, India was not very, very cooperative with the Tibetan cause. India at that time there's a so-called principle of the India-China brothers. India-China bye-bye. Means they are brothers. They had this policy of India-China brotherhood. So with that policy, India was reluctant to give us a support openly.
I see.
So we had to keep that for those so long period till about 1962 when Chinese invaded, through border. Then they realized. Then things became open. India were ready to get involved along with the CIA, and after that, they wanted to train more Tibetans in the military. So that's how we established a special frontier force in India, which was supported by India completely and trained by the CIAs.
So that's a little ways off, but let's back up in the story to you go to Okinawa. What happens to you
okay.
there?
From Okinawa, then I was asked to wait there and wait for another group The second group was consists of about 23. They were called, the instructors used to tell me that this is a special group. They call it a leadership group. They are being given a special training as a leadership. They are being given a special training in Colorado, in America, in the United States. In the United States, and they will go back to, some will go back to Tibet, or some will go back to Nepal or India, wherever they are needed. So that's how these 24 trainees came later on. Then with them, then I was, it was in the early 60s, I think. Then I went to Colorado, yeah.
You went to Colorado with them?
Yeah.
So when that new group, that 23 members of that new group, they were a leadership group, and were they from all over Tibet? And then were they from all over
Exactly,
Tibet?
from all over Tibet.
And where
That
did
was
you
really
go
a
with
very,
them?
very well selected group. This was pre-planned, I think, along, because I don't know the details, but along with our leaders and along with the CIS, they planned this way long before that. So there were people selected from all different parts of Tibet, because ultimately these leadership groups were going to go back to Tibet. They're going to drop. So in the place where they are more familiar, places where they are familiar.
So what happened where did you go with them? Where did the group go? To Colorado?
Yeah, Colorado, yes. Colorado was, at that time it was well established.
Did you
Yeah.
go?
Yeah, I went there since 10 years.
Can you tell us about where it was and what happened to you while you were, and how long were you there? What happened and how long?
I was there for 2 years in Colorado, 2 years, yes. Till 1961 end. Yeah.
So 1959 to
59 to
61?
61, yes.
To 1961. And can you tell us where was this place in Colorado and what was going on there?
When we weren't told those days, everything was so top secret, everything so confidential. None of the instructors told us where we were going, but they said we are going to go to some place in the States. But we ended up when we got to an airport. This was later on. It was Denver, Colorado. But when we went there, we were taken by a car, military truck, to about 4 or 5 hours to the Camp Hill camp.
What was it like?
It was so beautiful. Yes, it's up in the valley, way high up in the mountain. It was like the kind of winter time when I was there, and there was snow all over the mountains, and the valley is so beautiful there. There were a lot of trees, forested area all over, and many of the trainees thought that, oh, we are back in Tibet. But I didn't know. But many said, those treaties, oh, they must have dropped us into Tibet somehow. It looks so much, very much like Tibet. Boy, it's the altitude of the place of Camp Hill is above 10,000. 10,000 feet.
And what was your role in that organization?
My role, as usual, like as an interpreter, I was the translator for them, yeah. And when they were, when we first reached Okinawa, when they arrived, we had all those trainees, special group. They were given 3-4 days of resting. They had a fully medical checkup at Okinawa itself. There was a military hospital there. They took each and every one. We know if there's anyone who has some kind of disease or like that. There were instances of cases like one or two couldn't pass the medical tests and they had to remain back in Okinawa till the next group who go back to India, they are sent back. This happened like that. So fortunately the group which was with 24-man group, they all passed medical tests. Really. So after testing their medical pass, each were given a code name, so that if you can't call them, by Tibetan name is very difficult for the Americans to remember. So to realize each man has a name and with the thing stuck, so that we later on that name stuck with us, and we forgot their real name also, real Tibetan name. Yeah.
Did you have a code name, and what was it?
Yes, my name was Rocky.
How did you get Rocky?
That was what I was telling you. One Mr. Zik, he's a huge guy. I said, he said that Rocky for you.
Did he tell you what Rocky was or who?
No, I didn't know.
You didn't know. Did you
but I heard there are people named Rocky and this and that, but it sounds like very easy to remember.
So did you like it?
Yes, I liked it. I used to hear about a very famous boxer called Rocky Machano.
That's right.
So
I think you were named after him.
Yeah.
So, tell us what were some. That's a long period. You were there 2 years.
2 years, yeah,
And
two
so
and a half.
tell us some of the activities you translated, but what were they doing that you translated? What activities?
What activities? Like activities would include. There are so many activities like different trainees were divided into different groups. Like different groups, and some are given. We had at that time we had 3 interpreters at that time, and I was the one most called upon to do these things. That time I knew somehow. So activities are mainly like they teach you how to. We have a. They show you a different weapons, like one activity is like all different type of weapons, how to assemble different weapons, how to disassemble them. Then after you learning all this disassembling of these weapons, then one day they would ask you to blindfold yourself. We have to blindfold, and then automatically we have to, assemble these weapons. That's easy. That's to show in Tibet. You might have to do most of your work might be at night time work. So this is one of the reasons the instructors emphasize that we have to do weapons, and we tested a lot of different weapons, shooting range.
Did you actually do some of those activities?
Oh, same. I went through the same training.
Same training.
Yes, same training. While we're translating, we have to do. Even the instructors also go through the same motion.
I see.
So it's a.
And what was the attitude of yourself? First of all, what were you feeling about the Americans helping you like this? What did it leave you feeling or thinking?
Well, I felt that what Americans were doing was very, very sincere, very sincere for the Tibetan cause. They were really sincere, especially the instructors, not one or two, but all the instructors were so dedicated, When one or two instructors had to be transferred, they had to leave for another assignment, they used to call us. Especially, I remember one called Thomas, we call him Mr. Tom. He was there with us from very beginning, and he had to go for another assignment. He's a Marine guy. And when he went there, all the trainees were crying or weeping. And he was also weeping at the same time. He is really retracted. He was also felt very sad to leave you.
And what was the aim of what they were training you to do?
They said our aim was to have a set up a guerrilla tactics, guerrilla warfare, hit and run tactics. This is emphasis was that we are going to teach you guerrilla warfare, which involves hit and run in small groups, not in big groups, but in small groups. How to lay ambush, how to lay ambush, and how to make a bomb to sabotage Chinese vehicles, motor vehicles, all these things. Yes.
Yeah, I see. And did the men and yourself feel confident that these techniques would help you hold the Chinese off or fight them back?
Oh yes, definitely. They all felt that with many of the the trainees, they were veteran fighters. They just came over. When the Chinese took over, there were still guerrilla groups there in their area, in Kham area, but they are not very well organized,
Right.
scattered. So the main objective of the 24 special leadership group was to go back to Tibet and reorganize the whole guerrilla force and train them properly. So this was the main idea, because in Tibet, not in a bunch, but just in a small groups.
But you're talking about 61, you're there, right?
Yes.
1959 to 61.
Yeah, yes.
Are you getting news about what's happening in Tibet at that time? Are you hearing what's happening?
They were, what we were told was that we used to have a secret contact there. The CIA used to have a contact there. Because as early as 1957, when there was the first 6-man group was dropped into Tibet, all were trained in the transmission of radio operators, transmitting. So when as early as that, those days, they know that there are still guerrilla activities were going on there. All now, they felt that it's a high time that now we reorganize these groups into a more, what shall I say, more
Effective?
Yeah, more effective group, more sustainable.
More
group.
sustainable.
Yeah.
But at that time, in 1959, the Dalai Lama left.
Yes.
You are in Colorado. Does the news reach you? And what
No. 1959, when Dalai Lama came to India, I was in India at that time. Yes.
He was doing the school.
No, I know that was the first time. I'm talking about when Lhasa was attacked in 1959.
59 March.
Uprising.
The uprising in March. You were in Colorado.
No. I was in Colorado at the around September, October at that time. Before that, in May, June area, I was in the Saipan place called
You were inside.
in summer. Yeah.
Okay. So the team felt that they were going to be able to go back and really train other members to fight and hold off the Chinese. Is that right?
Yes. That was the main idea behind.
Okay.
That-
So
that-
that's what happens then next with this team. Can you tell us how the story develops?
Well, this team, they were given a 6 months training in all aspects of in different training of different, not only guerrilla tactics or ambushing or this, but in also clandestine work also, collection of information, intelligence gathering, all different. There's so many such a vast subjects there.
And then what did they do? after, when the training was over, what happened?
When they were there, one group was then, by that time, 61, we had already set up a military establishment camp in Mustang. That was in 60, already there, existing. There were a group of guerrillas, veteran guerrillas, were there, already there. And this special 24-man group were to go back to Mustang and give these remaining guerrillas up there, soldiers, a training in this guerrilla warfare tactics. And they were asked to go, since then they were going to go from Nepal, go to Tibet, go past, go and attack, ambush Chinese, come back again. Go back, come back. That was the main idea. They said not to just, the instructors used to tell the Chinese, the main idea is not to go and fight them in hand to hand like what you used to do, what you used to before. But this is a tactic, we have to hurt, make the Chinese hurt. Hit where it hurts most, you know. So that's the only way is to hit where the Chinese hurts, they get the most, you know. So the ambushing convoy, trucks coming over, you know, on the road, or militaries coming over. This way they've been going for a number of years.
So did you go with them to Mustang?
No, not me. No, I visited the Mustang, but I wasn't there because that time, that was in 1969 when I went to Nepal. But I wasn't directly involved with the Mustang program, but I knew much about the Mustang program because before I was transferred to Nepal, I was in Delhi working in the Joint Operations Center, we call it. It consists of the Indians who are involved, Indian government, Indian from the Indian Secret Service, we call it RAW, Research and Analysis Wing of the Indian Secret Service. And there was a Tibetan government from the Security Department were involved, and the Americans, of course, American representatives were there. So with the joint operation, we call it that, was established with the Corporation of India. So I worked there for 64, I think, from 67 to 69.
To 69. And what were some of the accomplishments of the group of men that you sent to Mustang? Do you know some of their success stories?
Oh, their success has been many. Until the Mustang was disarmed in 1974 because of the change in political thing in the China, India, Nepal, there's such a change, and the American policy as a whole also changed then. So those trainees had established a very well and set network of guerrillas, you know. They were, I mean, all the guerrillas can handle well, but they didn't know how to go on a guerrilla warfare, you know. Guerrilla warfare tactics. So these were taught by this leadership group. Along with them, they had review teams attached to them. They were also sent to Mustang. From Mustang, they were in the different parts of between Tibet, Nepal border. They were set up there, different review teams to get information. Yeah, this is the thing. And
so the group that you worked with in Colorado, in the end, went to Mustang and supported that effort.
Yes.
Were there earlier groups from Colorado that were actually sent back into Tibet and
yes, there were different many groups went to Tibet, they were dropped. Before 59, there were groups who were dropped directly into Tibet. Even in 59, before my group, before this group, there was another group who were dropped directly into Tibet.
Do you know what happened to the men in that group?
Well, later on we learned that many, number of them survived, but many unfortunately didn't survive, because once they reached their target area, when they reached target, in some cases the Chinese were already waiting for them, because they were being dropped from the airplane. The Chinese were waiting for them, set up an ambush for them. So especially one incident, when I was there, we learned a very sad case of one group who were dropped into Makam area, in Kham area. And one particular group, I remember, is he's young and very energetic and very well motivated. His father was in Makam area. He used to tell us that he says that we're still fighting the Chinese with the group he has, and he wants to go back and join his father's group. But finally, when he went there, when he was dropped there, he found out that his father had already been killed. His name is a very famous family, Pubapan, Makam Pubapan. And his son, his name is, in the training we used to give him, his name is Tim, Tim, Tim. But his Tibetan name is Ishi Wankya. He's a very intelligent guy. Among the trainees, I found him one of the most intelligent guy. He's very, very much highly educated in Tibetan writing, and he knows some English too. On his own, he's learned.
Did you feel that, or believe that the Americans could have given more support to the Tibetan freedom fighters that they were training in Colorado and dropping into Tibet? Do you believe or think there could have been more support from the Americans?
No, when we were in training, we automatically, it's always thought that the Americans already with us, so come what may be, the Americans will never abandon us. This is our feeling then.
And
we
then,
didn't know.
Did that feeling change?
That feeling afterwards, when the Americans stopped the Mustang program.
Why do you think they stopped it?
Well, we thought it was, I felt very much disheartened.
Yes.
Because we had such a high hope on the American government. At one time I said also in one of the earlier interviews in the Shadow Circus, I said my experience then was that even the highest authority in the United States, like the President of the United States, General Eisenhower, we had a huge picture of a portrait of Eisenhower in the camp, a games room where we used to play different games, pools and ping pong and all these different games, indoor games. And he said to my fellow Tibetans, this is from Eisenhower with love. So with that stuck to me, so I said that no matter how, but America will never abandon us. This was my feeling. When things had changed in the late 60s, then
What do you think changed in the late 60s that made Americans be less invested in helping Tibet? What do you think caused that?
Well, the change, I think it's a political change, situation changes. Like at that time, there was I think that during the Kissinger, when he was the Secretary of State, he was the Nixon's Kissinger period. That was the period when the China and the United States started this relationship, friendship.
Did you personally feel deceived or led on and then let down by the Americans?
I feel little let down, yes, at that
A
time.
little
Yes.
let down.
But I didn't at that time didn't know the background story. Of course, but what the background story was.
What do you think the background story was?
Well, the Americans also, has to see its own interest, It's understandable. Like many of our ex-trainees, they feel no bad feelings against America as such, especially the instructors. We have a very high respect, regard for all of the instructors. As a result, they still remain very loyal, and many books have been written by them also, their experience.
Yes. So what do you think was the American interest that led them to turn their support and attention from Tibet? What do you think they were trying to make happen instead of supporting Tibet?
I think it's like at that time, like in Mustang area, we had army. America had initially planned for a very small group of anywhere up to 300 to 500, very strong group, which they were willing to support. But finally, everybody was so eager. Tibetans are so very enthusiastic and very eager to fight the Chinese, one time at least. So they were more than the Americans didn't expect. All of a sudden, we had 3,000 up in the Mustang.
And America didn't expect
That.
of involvement.
Their instruction at that time to our leaders were to just about up maximum 300 to 500, a well-knit group with a well-trained army. And their job was to go back to Tibet and,
Some authors have suggested that the Americans were actually wanting to support the Tibetans to sort of be a thorn in the side, to kind of annoy the Chinese. But what you're telling me now is the Americans were actually a little bit shocked that so many Tibetans were there and could possibly really cause a lot of damage to the Chinese. And the Americans maybe didn't seem to want that as much, because you had all of a sudden there were thousands of volunteers ready to attack or hurt the Chinese.
Then later on, I think initially Americans weren't ready to support such a huge number of.
Why weren't they?
But later on, they were obliged to do that because people are already there. Even if somehow the Tibetans are going to survive somehow. The many survived, by eating the shoelaces.
I know.
There were no food, no nothing.
Tell us about conditions that you knew about in Mustang, because many people have been there.
Number of years, number of them were, there were no arms, no armless. Many were using sticks and knife, sword. These are the only weapons they had.
To fight the Chinese.
And food was so scarce. Mustang is a very, very remote area up in the mountains. Things don't grow much. There's not much of a cultivation there. And people normally all more or less like nomad type there,
Yes. Why were the Chinese coming into such a desolate area then?
No, because of the guerrilla forces was established there. That's why there was such a big Chinese pressure on the Nepalese government, on the king, to disarm those, illegal immigrants. They are not real refugees.
So the Chinese government was pressuring the Nepalese government.
Nepalese, yes. This
stop
is how in 1974, when things were dismantled, that the Nepalese sent tens and thousands of armies to dismantle the thing. But the guerrillas were not ready to give up.
So what did they do?
But they were not ready. But finally, the case came up to His Holiness's private secretary.
Yes.
When His Holiness heard this story, and of course His Holiness is he's not he thinks widely over for long-term basis. He said, this maybe the Nepali army could be stopped for maybe 5-6 months, because Tibetans are well armed there. They have a very well equipped weapons given by so, but what's the use? This is what His Holiness said. He sent in his tape record material, because okay, you may be able to fight the Nepalese for maybe 6-7 months. Okay, fine. But what happens to the rest of the Tibetans who are living in the Kathmandu Valley in Nepal area? There are 20,000 Tibetans are there. So what happens to them? Who will help them then? The Nepalese government will come down on them. So there is when you think about, he give them a good advice to give up, to surrender your weapons and come, and the Nepalese were willing to, provided if we surrender, they were willing to rehabilitate the guerrillas, the place wherever they want to go.
What was the reaction of the guerrillas when His Holiness told them to give up their weapons to the Nepalese?
That time I think it was a very emotional time.
I think so.
In a way, His Holiness' message was there, but in another way, people were they couldn't disobey.
I know.
It's not in them to disobey His Holiness' advice. So many committed suicide.
Yeah.
This is what I also heard from some of the trainees I know also. They committed suicide. It's rather to disappoint His Holiness, or rather give up my weapons, I would rather commit suicide. Some jumped into the river, some set their throat. This way, these cases have happened. Yes. So one group led by Genyeshi, not Genyeshi, rather Gyadu Wangdu, he was the general there, and he decided to fight it out. When the Chinese, but he said, okay, I'll rather go to either Tibet or to India. So he took his group and rode, but on the way he was ambushed from the China side. The Chinese soldiers were that side, and from this side the Nepalese soldiers were coming with a helicopter in between. So there was no way they can escape.
They wanted to
So
die.
they were yes, they wanted to die fighting.
Well, I'm going to make a very big leap now because of some important questions that have to do with today and the Tibetans, and I know we're going to have to end at least this part of the interview now. Could you please tell us what are your thoughts and feelings about the Tibetans who are immolating themselves in protest of the Chinese oppression? Can you talk about that from your years of experience and understanding? What do you think about that form of protest?
Well, this protest is it's expressing. I personally feel that the Tibetans are expressing their unhappiness, their dissatisfaction with the regime they are undergoing through. They are not, in a way, going against His Holiness's advice. They are not fighting. They are not being violent. They are being non-violently. They are sacrificing themselves, not harming anybody else. So, which I think is not, in a way, it's not a violent. Chinese it's a violent thing, but it's not violent. They are not happy. They want their freedom. They want His Holiness back where he belongs. 13th Dalai Lama at one time went to fled to India, and after 2 years he also went back. He was able to go back. So in this way, with the Tibetan historically, people think that those in Tibet think that it's high time that Dalai Lama should.
I see. Okay.
So I think this is my point.
What, after your years of experience, what are your feelings about the Chinese now? And if you could talk to them yourself, what would you like to tell them?
Well, I think like I'm like a non-violent man, you know. I'm follow of the middle way path. Like like many of our youngsters now, they go for full or for free independence.
Tell us, so people can understand, what do you understand by the middle way path?
The middle way path is, I think, most effective one. Like His Holiness has recently as it just about in April, he gave a speech in public speech in what you call this place called Sikkim. He said that that there are people in the world and even within our community who may not agree with my approach of what His Holiness middle way approach. But he said, I still firmly believe in the middle way approach, because
And what is that?
many people say that middle way approach is not successful, it's a failure. I said no. I said middle way approach has been very, very successful for many reasons. Because first of all, the international community has been made aware of the approach, the policy which His Holiness is declaring, stating. It's a most genuine policy which even the Chinese cannot deny.
What is the policy?
Over non-violence through middle way policy. Give and take, give and take. This is the policy, give and take.
Okay. What words would you say to the Chinese if you could tell them what you would like from them as a Tibetan? What would you like from the Chinese people or the Chinese government as well?
Well, I would tell them that, okay, give us freedom, free to worship, free to movement, freedom to speech. These are the things, basic human values which we have, and freedom to practice our own religion, freedom to practice our culture. These are things all we ask. But this is not a too much thing to ask Chinese. If you are reasonable, I think in that way, Tibetans would be very, very happy. I mean, at the moment, the self-emulations are going on because of the dissatisfaction of the Tibetans there, with the way the Chinese are treating them, So I would tell them that, I would tell them again if I meet them, yes.
And
I think that's the most practical way. Personally, I've been thinking on that a lot of time, because in my some 40 plus years where I've been in contact with the guerrillas, I've been with the violent things, but at the same time, after so many years, it has mildewed me, a little bit.
Yeah.
Things that, it's the peaceful way, it's international now. That's the only way for everybody.
I see. And so what would you advise the next generation of Tibetans to hold on to? What would be important?
I would just advise the young generations to never forget to maintain Tibetan identity and Tibetan culture. These are the two combined things which keeps our Tibetan culture alive, which makes us a Tibetan.
What do you think is the most important thing about the Tibetan culture for the people of the world?
Well, Tibetan culture, I think that teaches us to think others before yourself. See, if you help others. So this, I think, others rather than self. That is I think, the basic Buddhist teaching also. And this is also deep down in my mind. My advice to the youngsters would be the same thing. Yes, to maintain these are the two things.
And lastly, what do you think is the value of us doing interviews with the Tibetan elders from Tibet? Why do you think this is useful, or what do you think about it?
Well, I think this is personally it's a very useful because we are aging gradually. We phase out. We are out of this world one day, but our records will be left intact here for the future generations to see, and learn something from it, whether positive or negative. But at least that's a part of my personal history would be.
What was it like for you to tell your personal history today?
Well, it's my personal history. I've already told you that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
How was it to tell it, to share it with us? How did that feel?
Oh, I feel it's very satisfying. I feel it's going to help not only my children, but my grandchildren would also help to see that, okay, my grandpa has done this work. He has been very active in this in the Tibetan community. So in that way, I think this will generate sense of what you would say.
Patriotism.
Yeah.
What?
Patriotism.
A sense of patriotism?
Sense of patriotism, sense of belonging, Yes.
And we are now going to go back and ask you the question we asked you earlier. But I guess one last question for you. Is it, Thinley, is there anything that you can think of right now that you wish you had told us, or some story or some final thoughts that you might have for this interview? Anything that you think, I want to, because we can do some more later, but is there anything that you think of right now that you would like to say as we conclude this interview today?
Well, one thing I forgot to mention, but which I feel it's relevant, it's my personally knowing Kombutashi, very famous Tibetan warrior, who was the one who founded the Tibetan, guerrilla warfare. So I was fortunate enough to get in contact with him when he was here in India, able to meet him. Unfortunately, though I didn't know him personally, how I got contact, but he learned from others that I was from this family. From my family is known as Shasok family in Shikatsi area. And Kombutashi is a very, very famous, very rich merchant in Shikatsi area. Shikatsi area is one of the main trading centers between India and Tibet. So that's where we have a trade mart in Shikatsi. So Kombutashi also has a very, his house in Shikatsi set up, and he sends his merchants to every year for business trips too. So he happened to know my family, especially my elder brother. They're pretty good friends. So later on, when I was in India, I learned about him, and he learned about him. And one day, when Mr. Tundup asked me to, could you come to, that was in 1962, go and help translate, be as a translator for Kombudashi. He is sick, he is hospitalized in Calcutta, and the doctors feel that he needs a very good care, and if I could have someone could translate for him, sit with him. And I said, okay, yes, I'll go. Then when I met him, Kombudashi wasn't that sick there anyway. He could talk, he could speak. And he told me that, he asked me about my background, and I told him roughly, this is from Shigazi area, this and that. He said, oh, you're from Shasok family. Then I have a very close relation with your family. We used to have a very good business contact there. With your brother, used to go to Kalimpong, India every year. We have been several times, he said. So you are very good that I came to know you, that you are my interpreter. So that was like, in a way, I think I would call it a blessing in disguise.
Blessing in disguise.
Yes.
For people who don't know who he is, tell us who he is.
Kombudashi is a very famous merchant. He's a very rich one. All his wealth, he has been contributing to the Tibetan monasteries. Every year, he's a huge contribution. He's well known all over Tibet. He's Hantu Kombudashi. But he has his wealth, because of his contribution, somehow he's still rich. Never ends, because he is such a generous person. Yes.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Well, thank you for mentioning that story.
Yes.
So, again, we are very honored to record your story and really appreciate your participation today.